The alien ship moved slowly through the dark space. Its metal hull was black and covered with sharp edges. Commander Thek stood on the bridge and watched the broken human transport ship floating in front of them. "Sir, we found survivors," his officer said. 15 humans are still alive." Thek nodded. "Good. Board their ship and bring them here." The boarding team wore heavy armor and carried energy weapons. They cut through the damaged transport ship's hull and found the humans huddled in the emergency shelter. Some were hurt, but most looked healthy enough. The humans did not fight. They put their hands up and followed the aliens quietly. This surprised the boarding team. Most species fought hard when captured. Smart, Thek thought. They know they cannot win. The prisoners were brought to the cargo bay. Thek looked at them through the security screen. They were smaller than his people, with soft skin and no natural armor. Their uniforms were torn and dirty from the crash. "Show me their information," Thek ordered. His computer officer pulled up the data from the human identification tags. One lieutenant named Kyung-ho. 2 corporals Min-soo and Jong-ho. 1 communication specialist named Soo-jin. The rest are privates and support staff. Thek studied the list. This was normal procedure. The high-ranking officers always had the most important information. The low-ranking soldiers knew very little. "Put the lieutenant in maximum security cell Block A," he ordered. "The corporals go to medium security in Block B. Everyone else goes to general holding in Block C." "Yes, sir." The aliens separated the humans. Lieutenant Kyung-ho was taken to a heavily guarded cell with thick walls and multiple locks. He went quietly, carrying a small book he had saved from the crash. The other humans were put in simpler cells. The walls were thinner, the locks were basic, and fewer guards watched them. Min-soo the corporal was put in a cell with 2 other humans from different ships. Jong-ho was placed alone. Soo-jin the communications specialist was put with 3 other females. "Easy duty," the guard captain told his team. "The low-ranking ones never cause trouble. Watch the lieutenant. He's the dangerous one." The first day passed quietly. The humans ate their meals without complaint. They did not try to talk to the guards. They seemed scared and defeated. Thek was pleased. Good. Broken spirits make better prisoners. But on the second day things began to change. Private Min-soo sat in his cell and looked at his meal tray. It was made of some kind of metal that bent easily. He pressed it against the floor and twisted it until a piece broke off. The piece was thin and sharp. His cellmates watched him work. "What are you doing?" one asked. Min-soo held up the metal piece. "Making a key." In another cell, Corporal Jong-ho was watching the guards. Every hour, 2 guards walked past his cell. They always took the same path and stopped at the same places. Jong-ho counted their steps and timed their movements. "Guard change happens every 6 hours, he whispered to himself. "Morning shift is slower. Night shift talks too much." Meanwhile, Soo-jin was talking to the alien janitor who cleaned their cells. She spoke slowly and used simple words. "Thank you for cleaning," she said with a smile. "This place is very nice." The janitor was surprised. Most prisoners were rude or angry. This human seemed friendly. "You are welcome," the janitor replied in broken human language. "I know about cleaning too," Soo-jin continued. "On my ship I fix the communication systems. Very similar to cleaning, you find what is broken and fix it." The janitor became interested. "You fix things?" "Yes. The wall screen in my cell is broken. Maybe you have spare parts? I could fix it for you. Would save you work." On the 3rd day, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. "Security alert in Block C," a voice announced over the speakers. Thek ran to the security office. On the screens he could see chaos in the general holding area. Cell doors were opening. Prisoners were moving through the corridors. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Sir, it appears someone picked the locks," the security chief reported. "We found these in cell 47. He held up pieces of twisted metal that looked like tools. "Who was in cell 47? "Private Min-soo, sir. According to his records, he's just a supply clerk." More alarms rang. "Security alert in Block B." The screens showed Jong-ho leading 3 other prisoners through the medium security area. They moved like trained soldiers, staying in the shadows and avoiding the guard patrols perfectly. "Impossible," Thek breathed. "How do they know our patrol routes?" "Sir, there's more," the security chief said. "The human in Block C12 has been talking to our maintenance staff. She convinced them to give her spare electronic parts." "What did she do with them?" "We're not sure yet, but the communication system in that section is acting strangely." Thek felt a cold fear growing in his chest. These were supposed to be low-ranking humans. Simple soldiers with no special training. Yet they were acting like trained saboteurs and escape artists. "What about the lieutenant?" he asked. The security chief checked his screen. "Still in his cell, sir. Reading his book. He hasn't moved." This made no sense. The highest-ranking prisoner was sitting quietly while the low-ranking ones caused chaos throughout the ship. "Lock down all sections," Thek ordered. "Use maximum force if necessary." It took 4 hours to recapture all the escaped prisoners. No one was seriously hurt, but the damage was done. The humans had proven they were far more dangerous than anyone expected. Thek stood in his office later that night, reading the reports. A supply clerk who could make lockpicks from dinner trays. A corporal who could memorize guard patterns like a trained spy. A communications specialist who could manipulate alien technology and recruit enemy staff. What kind of military training do these humans have? He wondered aloud. The question would haunt him for days to come. Admiral Cork sat at his desk and stared at the growing pile of reports. Each one told the same impossible story. Human prisoners who should have been harmless were causing major problems across the galaxy. The first report came from Prison Station Alpha. 3 months ago they had captured a human cook named Junho. His identification showed he worked in a military kitchen. Nothing special. Just a man who prepared food for soldiers. But Junho had done something amazing. He took kitchen tools and turned them into weapons. A soup ladle became a club. Knives stayed knives but sharper. Cooking pots became shields and helmets. Then he did something even more surprising. He talked to the other prisoners. Not just humans but aliens from different worlds. He convinced them to work together. In one night, Junho led 200 prisoners in a revolt that took over 3 levels of the station. A cook, Admiral Cork said to himself. A simple cook. The second report was worse. It came from Mining Colony 7. They had captured a human maintenance worker named Deun. Her job was fixing broken machines. She was quiet and polite. The guards thought she was harmless. Deun spent 2 weeks watching and learning. She studied the computer systems that controlled the prison. She learned which wires did what. She understood how the security cameras worked. She figured out the guard schedules. Then she acted. Using spare parts from broken machines, Deun built new devices. She connected them to the main computer system. Suddenly all the cell doors opened at once. The security cameras showed fake images. The alarm systems played music instead of warnings. While the guards ran around confused, Deun walked out of the prison with 50 other prisoners. They took 3 ships and escaped into space. A maintenance worker, the Admiral whispered. She was just supposed to fix things. But the worst report came from Medical Station 12. They had captured a human medic named Woojin. Medics were helpers. They bandaged wounds and gave medicine. They were trained to heal, not to hurt. Woojin worked in the prison medical bay. He was friendly and helpful. The guards liked him because he treated their minor injuries. The other prisoners trusted him because he made their pain go away. For 6 months, Woojin collected small amounts of different medicines. He mixed them together in ways that created new drugs. He tested them carefully, making sure they worked but did not kill. On Liberation Day, when the prison celebrated their freedom from an old war, Woojin put his special drug in the guards' food. Within an hour, every guard on the station was asleep. Not dead, just deeply asleep for 12 hours. The prisoners walked out peacefully. No violence. No fighting. No one was hurt. They just left. Admiral Corks called his intelligence chief. "Captain Hex, come to my office immediately." Captain Hex arrived quickly. He was the best intelligence officer in the fleet. If anyone could understand this pattern, it would be him. "Read these reports," Admiral Corks said. "Tell me what you think." Captain Hex read quietly for 20 minutes. His face grew more worried with each page. "Sir," he finally said. "At first, I thought these humans were lying about their ranks. I thought Junho was really a special forces soldier pretending to be a cook. I thought Deun was a sabotage expert pretending to be a maintenance worker. I thought Woojin was a spy pretending to be a medic. But," the Admiral asked. "But I ran deep background checks on all of them. Junho really was a cook. For 5 years he worked in military kitchens. Deun really was a maintenance worker. She fixed ships and machines for 3 years. Woojin really was a medic. He treated wounded soldiers for 4 years." Admiral Corks felt his stomach turn cold. "So how do you explain what they did?" "That's the scary part, sir. I don't think they were pretending. I think they really were what their record said they were. But somehow that was enough." More reports arrived over the following weeks. A human driver named Sujin who escaped by rebuilding a prison transport into a racing ship. A human clerk named Teho who organized a prisoner information network using the prison's own paperwork system. A human janitor named Mi Young who created an escape route by carefully weakening the prison walls over several months. Each time the pattern was the same. Humans with simple jobs who acted like trained military officers. People who should have been easy to control but who caused major problems instead. Captain Hex brought Admiral Corks a new analysis after studying 50 cases. "Sir, I think I understand the pattern now," he said. "These humans are not Special Forces soldiers. But they are all trained like Special Forces soldiers." "What do you mean?" "In our military, a cook cooks. A driver drives. A medic heals. Each person has one job and does only that job. But human military training seems different. Their cooks are trained to fight. Their drivers are trained to lead. Their medics are trained to think like officers." Admiral Cork sat back in his chair. "Are you saying every human soldier is trained like an officer?" "That's exactly what I'm saying, sir. And if that's true, then every human prisoner is potentially as dangerous as any officer we've ever captured." The Admiral looked at the stack of reports again. 50 cases. 50 harmless humans who had caused chaos across the galaxy. And these were probably just the ones who had been caught. "Captain Hex," he said slowly, "I want you to study human military training. Find out everything you can about how they prepare their soldiers. Because if you're right, we need to change how we handle human prisoners immediately." The pattern was clear now, but understanding it would be much harder. Dr. Yeth sat in the research lab surrounded by hundreds of human military documents. For 3 months she had been studying how humans train their soldiers. What she found made no sense. "This cannot be correct," she muttered, reading a training manual for the 5th time. She called her assistant over. "Kex, look at this human training schedule. It says here that new soldiers spend 2 weeks learning to make decisions without orders from officers." Kex looked at the document with confusion. "That must be a mistake. Why would they train soldiers to disobey?" "That's not the strange part," Dr. Yeth continued. "Look at this next section. They teach basic soldiers how to lead other soldiers. And here, they teach them to solve problems using whatever materials they can find." In their own military this made no sense. Soldiers were taught to follow orders. Officers were taught to give orders. Workers did their specific jobs and nothing else. The system had worked for thousands of years. But humans seemed to do everything differently. Dr. Yeth pulled up a video file from human military training. It showed a young human soldier named Hyunwoo during his basic training. The instructor gave him a problem. "Your unit is trapped behind enemy lines," the instructor said. "You have no communication with headquarters. Your sergeant is injured. What do you do?" In any normal military the answer would be simple: wait for orders or find a higher-ranking officer. But the human trainee did something else. "I assess the situation," Hyunwoo said. "I check our supplies and weapons. I look for escape routes. I assign tasks to the other soldiers based on their skills. I make a plan and execute it." "Correct," the instructor replied. "Now explain your reasoning." Dr. Yeth paused the video. This was basic training for new soldiers. Yet they were being taught to think like officers. She watched more videos. A human cook named So Young learning how to fight with kitchen tools. A human driver named Jinho learning how to repair engines with spare parts. A human medic named Eunhee learning how to gather intelligence from wounded prisoners. "They train everyone to do everything," she whispered. Her computer chimed with a message. Admiral Corks wanted to see her findings immediately. Dr. Yeth gathered her research and went to the Admiral's office. The room was full of senior officers, all waiting to hear what she had discovered. "Admiral," she began, "I have been studying human military training for 3 months. What I found explains everything, but it also makes our situation much worse." She activated a holographic display showing human training concepts. First, humans have something they call initiative. This means acting without direct orders when the situation requires it. In our military this would be considered disobedience. In human military it is encouraged. The officers shifted uncomfortably. The idea of soldiers making their own decisions was frightening. Second, they teach all soldiers something called problem solving. This means finding ways to complete missions even when normal methods fail. They are specifically trained to use whatever materials are available to create solutions. Dr. Yeth showed them a video of human soldiers turning car parts into weapons and communication devices. Third, they teach something called adaptability. This means changing tactics when the original plan does not work. Every soldier is trained to recognize when situations change and respond accordingly. Admiral Corks interrupted. Are you saying that every human soldier receives officer training? Not exactly, sir. They receive training that we would consider officer level, but they call it basic soldier training. The difference is in how they view military service. Dr. Yeth changed the display to show human military philosophy. We believe in hierarchy. Each level has specific duties and responsibilities. Soldiers follow orders, officers give orders, commanders make strategy. But humans believe in something they call, every soldier a leader. She showed them a human training motto: every soldier must be ready to take charge when needed. This explains everything we have seen, Dr. Yeth continued. Junho the cook was not pretending to be a special forces soldier. He was using leadership training that all human cooks receive. Doon the maintenance worker was not secretly a saboteur. She was using problem-solving skills that all human maintenance workers learn. The room was silent. The implications were terrifying. How extensive is this training? Asked the intelligence chief. Dr. Yeth pulled up more documents. Every human soldier learns basic leadership regardless of their job. Cooks learn to lead kitchen teams and plan supply operations. Drivers learn to lead convoys and navigate dangerous territory. Medics learn to organize medical operations and make life-or-death decisions. She showed them a video of a human private named Minjae leading a group of sergeants during a training exercise. The sergeants followed his orders without question because his plan was better than theirs. In our military, rank determines authority, Dr. Yeth explained. In human military, competence can override rank in certain situations. Admiral Cork stood up slowly. Dr. Yeth, are you telling us that every human we capture has received training equivalent to our junior officers? Yes, sir. At minimum. Many have received training that exceeds our junior officer level. The Admiral walked to the window and stared out at space. If their basic soldiers are trained like our officers, what kind of training do their actual officers receive? Dr. Yeth hesitated. Sir, I have been studying their officer training programs. What I found suggests that their junior officers receive training comparable to our senior commanders. Their senior officers. She paused. Their senior officers receive training that is beyond anything in our military system. The room erupted in worried voices. If this was true, then humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had realized. Recommendation. Admiral Corks asked quietly. Sir, we need to completely change how we handle human prisoners. Every captured human, regardless of stated rank, should be considered a potential officer-level threat. The message arrived at every prison facility across the galaxy at the same time. Commander Vex stood in his office reading the official order for the third time. Fleet Directive 847, he read aloud to his security chief. All captured humans, regardless of rank or specialization, must be placed in maximum security cells immediately. Security Chief Mort looked confused. Sir, that means we need to move 38 prisoners to maximum security. We only have 12 maximum security cells. Then build more cells, Commander Vex replied. The order comes directly from Fleet Admiral Corks. Mort shook his head. Sir, with respect, this makes no sense. We have a human janitor named Boare in General Holding. She cleans floors. Why does a janitor need maximum security? Commander Vex looked at the directive again. Part of him agreed with his security chief. It seemed like a waste of resources. The order says to implement immediately, he said finally. But we can start with the ones who seem most dangerous. The janitor can wait. This was the first mistake. 3 days later, Boare had convinced the alien cleaning staff to help her map the entire prison layout. She told them she wanted to clean more efficiently. By the end of the week, she knew every guard schedule, every security camera location, and every weak point in the prison structure. On day 10, Boare used cleaning chemicals to dissolve the lock on her cell. She walked out during shift change when the guards were distracted. By the time anyone noticed, she had disabled the security system using maintenance access tunnels she learned about from her new alien friends. How did a janitor do this? Commander Vex demanded. Sir, she says she learned basic electronics in human military training, Mort reported. Apparently, all human janitors learn building systems as part of their job. Commander Vex felt his stomach drop. Move all remaining humans to maximum security. Now. But the problems had already spread to other facilities. At Prison Station Omega, Administrator KLX read the same directive with annoyance. This is ridiculous, he told his staff. We have a human supply clerk named Dongwu who counts inventory. He sits in a room and writes numbers on papers all day. The staff agreed. Moving Dongwu to maximum security seemed like overkill. They were wrong. Dongwu had been counting more than supplies. He counted guards, shifts, meal schedules, and prisoner movements. He turned the prison's own paperwork system into an information network. Using delivery schedules, Dongwu created a communication system between different cell blocks. He would write coded messages on supply requests. Other prisoners learned to read his codes from the supplies they received. Within 2 weeks, Dongwu had organized 40 prisoners into coordinated groups. They planned a massive escape using nothing but the prison's own logistics system. He turned our paperwork into a spy network, Administrator KLX said in disbelief after the escape attempt was stopped. A supply clerk created an intelligence operation using office forms. At Detention Center Prime, the resistance to the new protocol was strongest. Warden Thok had been running prisons for 20 years. He knew what made prisoners dangerous. "I am not wasting maximum security space on a human cook," he announced. Jae-sung prepares meals. That is all he does. Warden Thok was confident in his decision. What harm could a cook do? Jae-sung had been studying the prison food system for weeks. He learned which guards had food allergies. He discovered that certain alien species reacted badly to specific combinations of common ingredients. More importantly, Jae-sung learned that he could create harmless but effective sleep aids using normal cooking ingredients. Certain herbs made aliens drowsy. Some spices caused temporary confusion. On the day of the annual inspection, when the prison was full of visiting officials, Jae-sung put his plan into action. He prepared a special meal for the guard staff to celebrate the inspection. Within 2 hours, 60% of the guards were too sleepy to work properly. The rest were confused and slow. None were seriously hurt, but the prison was effectively undefended. "A cook," Warden Thok said weakly as he watched security footage of prisoners walking out of their cells. "He defeated our security with seasoning." The reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Every facility that ignored the directive experienced the same problems. A human mechanic named Eugene who turned repair tools into escape devices. A human clerk named Mina who hacked the prison computer using the data entry terminal. A human gardener named Seojun who grew plants that could dissolve metal bars. Each case followed the same pattern. Prison administrators thought these humans were harmless based on their job titles. Each time they were wrong. Fleet Admiral Corks called an emergency meeting of all prison administrators. "The directive was not a suggestion," he said sternly. "It was based on careful research into human military training. Every human prisoner has received training that makes them dangerous." Warden Thok raised his hand. "Admiral, with respect, how do we explain to our staff that a cook needs the same security as a captured general?" Admiral Corks activated a holographic display showing the escape statistics. "Show them this data," he said. In facilities that implemented the directive immediately, human escape attempts dropped by 90%. In facilities that delayed or ignored the directive, escape attempts increased by 300%. He changed the display to show cost analysis. "Yes, maximum security is expensive. But it is cheaper than rebuilding your entire facility after a human janitor destroys your security systems." The room was quiet as administrators absorbed this information. "The new protocol is not negotiable," Admiral Corks continued. "Every human prisoner receives maximum security treatment. No exceptions based on their stated job or rank." One administrator asked, "What if they really are just cooks or janitors?" Admiral Corks smiled grimly. "There is no such thing as just anything when it comes to human soldiers. Their cooks are trained infiltrators. Their janitors are trained saboteurs. Their clerks are trained intelligence officers." By the end of the month, every prison facility in the galaxy had implemented the new protocol. It was expensive and difficult, but it worked. Human escape attempts dropped dramatically. Prison security incidents decreased. Most importantly, administrators finally understood what they were dealing with. The age of underestimating human prisoners was over. Professor Keth stood in front of 200 young cadets at the Galaxy Military Academy. Behind her, a large screen showed pictures of human prisoners from across the galaxy. "Today we will discuss the human problem," she began. "Who can tell me what makes human prisoners different from other species?" A young cadet raised his tentacle. "Professor, they are all treated as officers now regardless of their actual rank." "Correct. And why is this necessary?" Another cadet spoke up. "Because they all act like officers even when they are supposed to be simple soldiers." Professor Keth nodded. "Very good. Now look at these images." The screen showed a human woman in prison clothes. This is Hygiene. Her military record says she was a communications specialist. Her job was to maintain radio equipment. Nothing more. The screen changed to show the damage hygiene had caused. She reprogrammed an entire prison facility's computer system using spare parts from a broken television. She created a communications network that linked 12 different prison blocks. A cadet asked, "How is that possible, Professor?" "That is exactly the right question," Professor Keth replied. "Let me show you more examples." The screen showed a man working in a kitchen. This is Jun Suk. He was listed as a cook. His job was preparing meals for human soldiers. The image changed to show Jun Suk leading a prison revolt. Using only kitchen tools and cooking ingredients, he armed 40 prisoners and took control of 3 prison levels. He held the facility for 6 days before reinforcements arrived. More images followed. A human driver who rebuilt prison vehicles into escape craft. A human medic who created knockout drugs from medical supplies. A human clerk who organized intelligence networks using office paperwork. Each of these humans was captured doing exactly what their records claimed they did, Professor Keth explained. They were not special forces pretending to be regular soldiers. They were regular soldiers with extraordinary training. A cadet in the front row raised her claw. "Professor, what kind of training could make a cook into a military leader?" Professor Keth smiled grimly. "That brings us to the heart of the human problem. Our research team spent months studying human military training methods. What they found changed everything we thought we knew about warfare." She activated a new display showing human training concepts. Humans train every soldier to be a leader. Every cook learns tactical planning. Every driver learns combat operations. Every medic learns strategic thinking. They have a saying, "Every soldier a leader, every leader a soldier." The cadets looked confused. In their military, specialization was everything. Cooks cooked. Drivers drove. Soldiers fought. Officers commanded. "But Professor," one cadet asked, "if their basic soldiers are trained like our officers, what are their actual officers like?" This was the question Professor Keth had been waiting for. "We have encountered human military leaders in battle," she said quietly. Admiral So Young commanded their 3rd Fleet during the Battle of Kepler Station. General Minho led the ground assault on Vega Colony. Marshal Unji planned the campaign that liberated the Centauri system. She paused, letting the names sink in. These were humans who had defeated their best commanders. If human cooks and drivers require maximum security protocols, what does that tell us about their admirals and generals? The room fell silent. The implication was terrifying. Professor Keth changed the display to show battle statistics. "During the war, we captured 1,247 human prisoners. Of these, 1,031 were listed as non-combat personnel. Cooks, drivers, clerks, mechanics, medics." The numbers changed color. Of these non-combat personnel, 847 attempted escapes. 623 succeeded. 234 caused major security incidents. 156 organized other prisoners into resistance groups. A cadet whispered, "How many combat personnel did we capture?" "Only 216, Professor Keth replied. "And their success rate was even higher." She showed them a new image. It was a human woman in a simple uniform, sitting quietly in a cell reading a book. "This is Captain Doon. We captured her 6 months ago. She has not attempted to escape. She has not caused any incidents. She sits in her cell and reads." The cadets looked relieved. "Finally, a normal prisoner." "Captain Doon commands a human special forces unit," Professor Keth continued. "Her unit has destroyed 12 of our military bases. She personally led the raid that captured Fleet Admiral Corks." The relief vanished from the cadets' faces. "She sits quietly in maximum security while human janitors and cooks cause chaos throughout our prison system. This suggests that her capabilities exceed anything we have yet witnessed." Professor Keth walked to the center of the room. "This is why Directive 847 exists. This is why we treat every human prisoner as an officer. Because in their military system, the distinction between officers and enlisted personnel is meaningless." She activated the final display. It showed a simple human military motto translated into their language. "Adapt. Improvise. Overcome." This is their basic philosophy, she explained. Every human soldier is taught to adapt to new situations, improvise solutions with available resources, and overcome any obstacle through creative thinking. A cadet asked, "Professor, what does this mean for future conflicts with humans?" Professor Keth's expression became grave. "It means we have been fighting the wrong war. We assumed that defeating their military leadership would cripple their forces. But every human soldier is potential leadership. She looked around the room at the young faces staring back at her. It means that humanity is not just another species with advanced technology. They are a species that has turned military service into a form of universal officer training. Every human we capture reveals new capabilities we did not know existed. The class ended with a sobering thought. Remember this lesson, Professor Keth said. If their ordinary soldiers require our highest security measures, then their extraordinary soldiers represent a threat we are only beginning to understand. The screen went dark, but the implications would haunt military planning for generations to come.